You've all been asking me what's a good playlist for improving aim overall for months now. Making this playlist would be insanely hard and scaling it to difficulty would be even harder. Fortunately for you all, an aim trainer called Oblivity who is sponsoring this video offered to make all of the scenarios I requested in their aim trainer so that you guys can have a great playlist for improving aim overall. This is a pretty big project including a lot of unpopular scenarios, so I'd really recommend sticking around and looking at what we came up with over the past month and a half of work. We also made 3 playlists, an easy, medium, and hard one. Overall, they're pretty much the same with different bot speeds and sizes, though the easy one has a few smoothness scenarios that the others don't. Feel free to try all 3 to decide which is best for you, but I'd say the difficulties pretty much match up with whether you're easy, medium, or hard on the RA benchmarks, though those on the ethereal and divine end of the RAs may want an even harder playlist. The first group of scenarios are reactive flicking, starting with a purely horizontal reflex firework flick scenario, perfect for training getting peaked when you don't know exactly where or which direction the person will come from. For all of the reactive flicking scenarios, try to flick fast enough to hit the target before it disappears, even if that means less than 20% accuracy. The following set is just a normal reflex firework flick, which does the same thing but helps a lot for games where there's vertical movements involved in peaking. I also put in 2 more reflex flick scenarios that allow people to react and flick across a relatively small distance. These will let you train aim necessary for small but fast adjustments you'd make in attack FPS. One is clicking, the other's target switching. Next, I put in a simple one wall one target Pokeball. This scenario forces you to react faster to kill more bots, meaning that if you push yourself, you will require a ton of reaction no matter how good you are. With a scenario where a bot survives for like 500 milliseconds, once you can react to that bot, you aren't pushed any further. With this scenario, there will always be more bots if you kill them faster, so you want to move faster. Next, I have a basic horizontal target acquisition flick scenario. Start on the first bot, click it, once the second one appears, flick to that and click it. It's a bit different in Oblivity. You click the first bot in order to spawn the second bot rather than waiting for the second bot to spawn in to click the first bot. The next category I put in is non-reactive flicking. For the most part, these are basic static clicking and Pokeball scenarios. The main exception to this is a Zen TS inspired scenario called hoverballs to force larger vertical flicks than most people are comfortable with. This skill doesn't get trained enough in most routines, so it's very important that we cover it here so that when you're confronted with a large vertical flick, wherever it may be, you can make it comfortably. However, in most games, these scenarios are rare, so don't overfocus on this Zen. We also have some wide wall Pokeball scenarios so that you can practice making fast flicks and stopping them. Try to learn not to shake when you finish your flick while still going fast when playing these. There's a close static and close target switching scenario to practice the technique for small micros without having to worry about reacting and being fast enough. For these, still push speed but not so much that you can't even observe your technique. The static scenario should probably be somewhere between like 65 and 80% accuracy, and the target switching scenario which should feel at a similar difficulty. I also included a 1 wall 5 target small scenario. This is for 2 reasons. Static clicking has essentially become its own game, so to practice all of aim, you really need to practice static clicking. Also, it is pretty useful for learning to flick to a target with relatively good technique and accuracy. This is at the end of the flicking spectrum that most games don't really practice, so it's definitely useful to try it every now and then to learn better form and technique. For this scenario, maybe like 85 to 95% accuracy. The last scenario in this category is called pressure aiming. This scenario basically forces you to flick to targets faster than you are comfortable with, the opposite of the previous scenario. To play it, simply flick to the target closest to you and try not to let it get by you. You will likely miss and it won't be comfortable, but that's the point. It is the opposite of traditional static. It pushes your limits. Next, we created a dynamic clicking category. I put in a basic B180. This is just for clicking a relatively small but predictable target. It's a basic dynamic scenario, but it's a very popular one as it forces you to learn to read a jump-like arcing motion. We also made a scenario called Swing Shot, which is great for learning to flick to people using and abusing AD strafe patterns in games. The next 2 scenarios are a larger, faster, and smaller, slower Pasu. At higher levels, the larger Pasu is also more likely to change direction sooner. These are meant to train your ability to hit a small, randomly moving target and react to changes in direction. Try to flick, adjust, and click with as little tracking as possible. If you're on the same target for more than a second or 2, just move on whether you can get it or not. I also included a TAM speed scenario. This spot is not meant to be challenging, it is a dynamic speed scenario. Move fast, you'll miss some of the time, that's fine, it's reload scoring, just aim fast. The one limit is don't go so fast that it becomes spray and pray, still be in some control of your mouse. I also put in a vertical and horizontal floating head scenario. The horizontal version allows you to practice the actual strafe part of the AD strafe pattern without being distracted by random changes in direction, and the vertical one allows you to practice falling and rising enemies wherever you may see them. For these, flick to where the target's gonna be when your crosshair gets there, or right after, and then click. This playlist also includes a popcorn scenario, which is kinda like trying to kill a Widowmaker as Widowmaker in Overwatch. Click the bots at their apex as they're easiest to hit there. The following category is evasive target switching, which is basically just a flick to a target, track it, repeat. These scenarios have the benefit of training both of those skills, slowing down your mouse like you would in a dynamic clicking situation instead of hard stopping it like in speed or static TS or static clicking, and a few other really niche skills. I used Kin TS, Stark TS, and a smaller, higher health version of Psalm TS. The one I want to pinpoint is Stark TS, as it is a great scenario for TAC FPS games, which most of you play. It was actually originally designed in Kovaaks for my Valorant benchmarks. This scenario trains you to slow down and make your movements horizontal when you come close to a counter-strafing enemy without stopping your mouse on that enemy. If you stop your mouse when you flick to someone who's strafing it, your adjustment has to go a lot further. You'll also have to accelerate your mouse a lot less if it's already moving when you start to adjust. For the reactive tracking category, there's a lot of bots that just switch directions and wrap around you a bunch of time. These scenarios will require like 20 centimeters per 360 to play comfortably. They are very fast and switch around a lot. They will challenge your target reading a lot more than reactive tracking, which is kind of becoming precise tracking with directional changes. Reactive tracking should be becoming harder to read and react to, not harder because the target is smaller and needs more precision. For smooth tracking, I used very basic non-reactive, high accuracy smooth scenarios. Smoothbot, PGTI, B180 Ti. I also included a basic PGTI vertical only and a centering one in the easy playlist only. I feel the scenarios that only have one axis of movement are so simple they rarely serve medium to advanced players much benefit, so I only included them in the easy playlist. For precise tracking, I included my 5 favorite precise tracking scenarios: Control Sphere, an extra small slow Control Sphere, Smooth Sphere, an Air Angelic 4 inspired bot, and Vert Sphere. It's important to keep in mind movement and physics in Oblivity works differently than in other aim trainers, so these bot patterns won't be identical, more just inspired on each other. These scenarios are designed to push your ability to make smaller, more precise motions. Knowing where the target is and keeping up with it mentally shouldn't be a struggle. The struggle should come from the ability to actually make the fine, precise motions to keep your crosshair on where you know it should be. For the easy mode, Vert Sphere is purely vertical. To find these playlists, just open Oblivity and search up my name. Make sure you subscribe for more content. I've got a ton of cool ideas coming up in the next few weeks and I don't want you guys to miss them.